All right, we are live. Today is Thursday, September 3rd, and this is our weekly meeting to check in on active issues for Bckdrop core and other related things. This is our first meeting post feature freeze for Bckdrop 1.17. So we've got a bunch of exciting updates coming up. Before we get to that, let's do some quick introductions. Let's have everybody say their name, where they're joining us from, and if there's anything urgent you want to share with the group. Greg, I'm going to have you introduce yourself first, and when you're done, please call on someone else to introduce themselves.
Thanks. Greg, I'm joining from Greece. Excited about the upcoming 1.17 release and trying to help iron things out in the next couple of weeks and fix some bugs as well. Tim, next. Got you off guard.
Yep. No, I'm ready. I'm Tim, St. Paul Tim. I'm in Deerwood, Minnesota, and there were just 20 minutes ago 2 deer walking by, but they're gone now. So, and it was a very exciting release and fun. I feel like I've gradually gotten more and more involved, and I feel like I know more about this release than any previous release that I've been involved in, and that was interesting. So, well, is Matthias participating?
I think he's in listen-only mode. Yeah.
Okay. So, Jen, you're next.
All right. I'm Jen Lampton. I'm joining us from Oakland, California. I'm very excited about Tim's deer. Let's have Nate introduce himself.
I'm Nate Lampton, also in Oakland, California. And yeah, 1.17 got a whole bunch of things in it that kind of as usual, like deadlines make things happen. So I'm excited to talk about all those things today.
All right. Before we get into all the exciting things that happened, I want to just mention that we have 2 new contributed modules this week, Paragraphs Mapper and Single Image Formatter. So always stuff happening, which is great. And then let's turn it over to Nate to talk about what went into 1.17.
Cool. I'm checking out those new modules. Okay.
Jen, there's no links. Sorry, there's no links for the agenda in the chat.
What?
For the dev agenda, there's no link in the chat.
Oh, for the video?
Or for the video.
Sorry about that.
Yep, no worries. Sorry, Nate.
No worries. All right, so 1.17. 1.17's feature freeze was Tuesday, day before yesterday. And so we had a really productive code sprint over the weekend. And there was also a lot of activity that continued on through Monday and Tuesday to get things all wrapped up. Big thanks to our reviewers out there. We had lots of really super reviewers that were coming in constantly, and we're getting stuff reviewed like in 10 minutes. Stuff was coming back, and the feedback loop was super positive there. Also, big thanks to core committers BW Panda and HerbDuel, who both were actively reviewing and merging things as well. It was super cool. With BW Panda in Australia, we had kind of like round the clock merging action happening for the past several days, which was really cool. So let's go over what we completed in 1.17 and what we didn't complete, I suppose, as well. First up is kind of one of the largest structural changes for 1.17, adding support for custom contexts, issue 3750. That issue is merged in. We do have some ongoing conversation about the way that we achieved backwards compatibility might cause some confusion when you start creating complex contexts, but core doesn't have any of these complex contexts so far. And so when we get to that situation, we'll decide if we need to add additional support for making it so that those things work consistently, or if the current approach is confusing, then we can address it then. So 3750 got merged in. That's really great. Although it's kind of a power user feature, it does open us up to some interesting possibilities and layouts, kind of starting to make layouts fully realize the capabilities that panels had in Drupal 7, because there's still 1 or 2 things that layouts in Bckdrop don't fully support, and this is one step closer to that. Let's see, next up, BW Panda advocated for this security enhancement that we should be adding htaccess files to the config directories. The private files directory has a little security enhancement on it, although it's recommended that you move your private files directory outside of the web root. If you don't, Bckdrop tries to secure that directory with an htaccess file, which works for Apache. And we have the exact same recommendations for config, that config, we recommend you move it outside of the web root, but if you can't, right now it's only protected by obscurity, that it's given a completely weird random MD5 hash name. And this enhancement makes it so that the same way that we secure the private files directory, we do the same thing to the config directory. So in the event that you can't move your config outside of the web root, this adds an additional security enhancement on top of it. So that's great. Let's see. This next one is really crazy because it came out of just this past couple of weeks. Lazy loading for image tags, issue 3659. As of a week ago, we had an approach that was trying to add this loading equals lazy attribute globally across the entire site, but it wasn't actually being global. And so this issue pivoted really quickly from having a global setting to moving it to a per image field setting instead. So now when you configure the display formatter for an image, you can decide whether or not it loads lazily or not. I also like the way that it turned out. Not only can you specify if something is lazy loaded, you can specify if it should be eager loaded, which means that it's a critical part of the page. So if you have a situation where you put an image above the fold, you can specify in that display formatter that it should be loaded eagerly, saying that it's a critical part of the page. So that was great. That was a real great compromise, and switch to the way that that works, that it's not only works consistently, it also provides more flexibility than before. So I'm really pleased with the way that that issue 3659 turned out. Next up, there's a feature from date module that had been removed in its port to Bckdrop, and issue 2766 restores the views pager by date. That got completed. It had been marked potentially as a 116 issue, but being so close to a minor release and it really being a new feature that hadn't been in previous versions of Bckdrop, it was merged only into the 1.x branch for 117. So 2766 restores that functionality. It's great to see that. And then we have a number of issues that we've never mentioned during these team calls because we only really cover stuff that has an advocate during these calls. But there's a number of other issues that got merged in the last week that are also worth mentioning, even though they never specifically had an advocate, or at least they didn't before this week. So one of them is expanding image tokens, formerly the functionality of the image cache tokens module in Drupal 7. It's issue 3594. That enhancement makes it so that you can, when placing a token, you can specify individual image styles to be represented in that token now as well. So that's a cool enhancement. Enforcing basic password constraints, issue 4265. HerbDuel really put in some really solid effort on making this possible. That there was a lot of back and forth in this issue. I think we had like 130, 140 comments. But we reached a pretty good compromise that there is now just a single checkbox on the user account settings forms that allow you to reject weak passwords. So there's just one checkbox that says reject weak passwords. And if you check that box, it will not allow users to use the username, use their username as their password, use their email address as their password, or have a weak password per the password strength
Link.
indicator.
Yeah.
And so that basically rules out, passwords like less than 6 characters and stuff of that nature. So that's really cool. It also has some under the hood enhancements, because what a weak password is really can fluctuate. And the system for determining weak password is extensible, so that a contrib module could, in theory, add additional enhancements on there to identify what weak passwords are. The most obvious candidate is like there's certain, like the list of the top 100 passwords, for example, isn't something that we've built into core, but contrib could easily exclude certain things, like the word password is one of the most common passwords. And in Bckdrop, that might eke past the weak password indicator. But if you had a block list of bad passwords, then that password would be considered weak. So anyway, it's a really great compromise. There's also some flexibility in there for contrib to extend it further. Let's see. This other enhancement, allow all blocks to have an admin label and description, is issue 4558. There's some pretty strong enthusiasm in there in that issue for that new functionality, that when you place a block in Bckdrop, it auto generates a description in the preview area, like when you're editing the layout. And if you place the same block multiple times, then it can be really confusing. Like they could be configured differently and be displaying differently, but the admin description and label on those blocks are all the same. This lets you add a custom description and label on each one of those instances of the blocks, so you can tell what the difference is between them. So yeah, some site builders are very excited that will make managing complex layouts a lot easier for them. And lastly, a new issue is an enhancement to the admin content listing /admin/content. That listing was converted to a view within Bckdrop, but in that conversion, it lost the ability to show the new or updated marker next to each piece of content. We restored that in issue 2350. So the view is now configured to show that indicator when viewing that listing. So if you're an administrator, you can see new content that has been created since the last time you viewed that page. That's it for the list of things that got into 117 this week. It was super great. We got on all kinds of things. Sorry about my cat meowing. We didn't get in the view. We were trying to remove the view the administration theme permission. That's issue 4487. It never got tagged in the 117 milestone because it never got seconded. And so I think that made it so that we lost track of it a little bit, but that's fine.
I have
We can't get everything in. Yep.
I have questions on that. So the reason they wanted that in 117 is because it was blocking the ability to add a checkbox to use the administration theme on the login form issue.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to do this one in 117 so we could do that one in 118. But question for core committer, can we still get them both into 118 even if they're in, as long as we get them in the right order? Or do we have to bump the next one in 119? Okay.
No, I think we could do them both in one release.
Yeah. If we merge that one early, yeah, we'll probably have time.
Yep. So that one got bumped to 118, I believe, 4487. It's actually not in, okay, it's still just a milestone candidate. It's not even in 118 yet. So speaking of those milestone candidates, a recap for our general process here is that whenever we want to put something in the next minor version, we mark it as a milestone candidate minor, and then another person has to come in and second it as saying, yes, this should be in the next minor bug release. But we haven't been real good about agreeing, or perhaps not, people just don't necessarily think certain things should be in the next release. But we currently have 56 issues that are all candidates for the next minor issue. So there's just a lot of issues there that potentially we could whittle that down a little bit, either saying, no, I don't think this is a good candidate for the next version, or yes, this is a good candidate for the next version. Or maybe it's fine that there's 56 of them there. That
Yeah,
are
we
just waiting
have a
for
bucket to
second.
choose from. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have lots of potential issues that could go into 118, which would be the next minor version. All right. Well, that's the status on 117. Do you guys have anything else you would like to add regarding the next minor version, or this minor version that we're working on? No? Okay, you unmuted, Tim. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Don't worry.
So 116 is the bug fix release, and 116 continues to accrue lots of bug fixes. Let's see. One of them is this error about update.php throws a message telling you to delete your configuration if your staging config directory isn't ready. It's a confusing sounding issue, but it's a simple fix. 3846, this one has been marked RTBC. There's an issue where the site gets stuck in maintenance mode if you update a module through the UI, issue 3956. There hasn't been any updates on this in a couple of weeks, but the current issue has a pull request and just needs review. This automated code checks issue that uses PHP-CS to check the code style of issues, or a code style of your code. It's issue 3213. There's progress happening on this, but the issue itself hasn't been updated because it's happening in different issue trackers. And so I unfortunately am not really well prepared to give it an update on quite where that is. Anyone else want to comment on that one? The PHP-CS one? Okay. Well, if Joseph Flatt watches this video, I'm sorry that I can't remember the status of things, because I know you're working on it and I appreciate it. But maybe let's get an update on that issue so that way we'll be able to give summaries in the future. Let's see. And then lastly, in this kind of general list, we have this issue where CKEditor was not saving when in source mode, when in a dialog. So this most frequently occurred when you were editing a custom block, that you would edit a custom block, switch to source mode, and then save, and it wouldn't save your changes. So issue 1259 is that one. We found a fix for it, and it has been merged, much to Tim's relief, because he says that he runs into that one all the time. Let's see. Other things that are in the almost done category, setting a reasonable max input vars PHP variable. It's issue 3824. We got a reroll on that issue just today. It currently needs review. And we still need to update the documentation that it links to accurately reflect recommendations. But that one's getting real close. Removing the block title from the search block is issue 3476. This one got a new pull request this past week and got multiple reviews of people saying that it's working correctly. Actually, it's funny because they said, this is how it's working. Is that correct? And Colonus, you came in and said, yes, that is correct. So it's actually been tested by 2 different people saying that it works the way that we expect it to, but they weren't actually sure if that was correct or not. So that one is probably ready to be at least works for me, possibly RTBC. So that's great.
It is labeled works for me at the moment.
Oh, it is labeled works for me. Okay, great. And then I guess not lastly, views, the OR behavior can be a little bit strange. It's issue 3415. Haven't been any updates in this issue. We still have a pull request and it still just needs review. Okay, and then lastly, we have remove blacklist and whitelist from core issue 4441 and remove master and slave terminology from core 4451. Both of these haven't seen any updates in this past week, and both of them still need work.
I was ignoring them because they weren't tagged for 117, but I do want to get them in, so I'm gonna work on them this week.
Yep, and that's what I was going to say next is that we have this 2-week lull, if you will, in between now and the release of, sorry, just keep forgetting what current version we're on, 117. And so 117 comes out on September 15th, and we won't be putting in any new features between now and then, but we will still be doing bug fixes that exist in both the 117 version only and in the current 116 version. So 116.3 will come out on the 15th as well. And so if we're looking to make progress on fixing things, there's no reason to wait. Like, now is a great time to get additional enhancements in for the last version of 116 if you would like to do that. And all of the enhancements we put into, all the bug fixes we put into 116 will also be in the 117.0 version that comes out on the 15th. So the 116, all that is to say, if you're looking for things to fix, look at the 116.3 milestone. And that's probably where the bulk of new work will be happening for the next couple of weeks. All right. That's it for the product update. Do you guys have anything else you would like to add? Any issues I missed or any strong areas of interest?
I wanted to mention that we want to encourage people in this 2-week period to test the pre-release version, but we don't provide an easy way for them to do it similar as we do for the demos. So there's been some discussion. Developers can get the 1.x branch and set it up on the local, but we should encourage more, everyday users. So eventually we should either get a second button on the demo page to say that we can publish and unpublish as pre-releases come out, or as Dr. Wilmot suggested, we should have a button that always tests the latest head version. So we can discuss that separately. But it would be good because you get more people to testing in that 2-week period. You're muted, Nate. You're muted.
We wouldn't put a second button on the homepage, but once you get to that demo page,
Yes.
like possibly have a select list that lets you choose a different version of Bckdrop would be helpful. Yeah, that would be a great enhancement.
Mhm.
So in the newsletters that we will send out, we can say, hey, this is what's coming up. Please help us test it and polish it. And then we can offer a link to where they can spin up a demo.
Speaking of that, are we planning a newsletter before the release of 117?
Yes, because of Bckdrop Live. Yeah,
Ah, okay.
but probably one after as well.
Yeah.
I'm thinking there'll be like 2 in the next week, 2 weeks, like one as soon as possible, and then another one right after the release and right before Bckdrop Live.
That would be great.
And then another one 2 weeks after 117. We can announce 117.
right. Well,
Well, sure. I mean, okay, we'll talk about that later.
Just because we don't want to announce 117 before we have to fix any like critical
Right.
bugs. So
Okay.
hopefully there won't be any, but you never know. Olaf, you didn't get a chance to introduce yourself this meeting. Are you interested in doing so now?
Okay. Yeah, I'm Olaf from Hamburg, Olaf Trawienski, and I'm using Bckdrop for my websites, for my client websites and my own one, and working on different issues, on translation issues, and so on. And just checking in.
Justin, would you like to introduce yourself too?
Oh, sure. I'm Justin Christopherson. I'm in Denver, Colorado, and I'm probably going to make some tickets to update the servers. It's been a little while. So that's about all I have.
Great.
I'm going to be the bad guy to bring it up. There was some frustration last week with sandboxes failing a lot, and if there's something we can do to, I don't know if you're updating the servers will help with that, or
I think the sandboxes that were failing are all the ones on Gore's server. So we don't actually have any control over that. So like we have control over, well, I don't know about this actually. We have control over the ones on bckdropcms.org where you click the button. Are those the ones that were failing? Yes.
No.
Okay. No.
oh no.
Okay. The ones on the pull requests
yeah.
yeah, those are Gore's, and we don't have any control over what's going on over there.
other than asking him, but we do have the option.
Gore. Okay, so Justin's not involved in that at all. It's Gore. Okay.
Yeah, we do have the option if we want to switch our sandboxes over to Tugboat, like that is an option that we have available to us.
We might want to ask Tugboat though for more space before we do that, because we're always running out of space using the normal like button push process. And if we're going to add like 1,000 pull requests to that, we want to make sure we have the ability to do that.
Yep.
Maybe we want to schedule a meeting, or use one of these meetings to talk about that whole process. Because I don't count myself. I was frustrated by them, but it's not my biggest priority. But I was sensing from some other people in the queue that this is getting to be something that
It has
needs
been getting
attention.
worse with time. And I also noticed that our tests are failing now too.
Yes.
We don't have another alternative for tests at the moment. So it would be good to get some of Gore's attention on that, at least to look at the test stuff, even if we can say we can switch over sandboxes. But maybe if we get his attention, he'll fix the sandboxes too. So I don't know. Worth a shot, I think.
The sandboxes were failing this past week, I guess, or two, and the ones that were failing were really old ones. So I understand that maybe the same way that Tugboat sort of like purges the old ones, maybe that's what happened, and then we get redirected to those pages. I'm just saying,
I had problems with
assuming.
new ones too.
There were brand
Really?
new sandboxes that were failing. It wasn't just old ones.
So it didn't happen for me. What has been annoying me for years is the tests, as you say, they randomly fail, and sometimes they fail and the details links nowhere, so I have no visibility, and I'm forced to close and reopen pull requests to make that go away, and it doesn't happen on the first time either. Like it might take several times before it. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, do we have any other topics or anything? Olaf and Justin? Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I have an old one. Just wanted to ask about the status of the issue. It's one of the 116.3 milestone about the transliteration. Nate, I guess you remember it. It's the name of the issue is transliteration doesn't respect the site default language, and the number is 2637. And yeah, I guess we have a working PR. I marked it as works for me, and sorry, Yeah, there was a discussion about the approach because we had two different approaches, and you were a bit concerned, Nate, about the current approach. But I think both of us, Indigo Xeda and me, we are quite okay with the current approach. And so after you expressed your concerns, we didn't hear from you. And so as the next release is approaching, I'm wondering what we want to do there. Should
Yeah,
we continue the discussion? Or?
I'll take a look and comment. Yeah, that you guys wrote tests. That's awesome. Thanks, Indigo Zella, for doing that. And it looks like the current approach that you guys are taking is the same approach that 777 had used. So it's not changing anything, even though there might be a better way to do it. But, you know, it's could be more complicated. So anyway, I'll post a comment. Sorry for my neglect on this one.
No problem.
And I'll, if I added that to the agenda so that we'll talk about it next week too. And I think next week we'll still have a few days left before the 15th. So
If it
Yep.
does if it does things the same way as Drupal, maybe we should get it in and then improve, like a follow-up for improvement.
Yeah, and it's
With
something
your
that could
thoughts on
change
that?
later.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right, well, let's wrap it up then. No need to stretch things out. So thank you guys all for coming. We really appreciate it. And yeah, we had a really, really great week. I'm really happy and pleased with the work everybody did. And so much cross collaboration and different groups working on different things. It was just really, it's really been something where we're moving out of like the small community category, it feels like, into like the medium-sized community, because there's just a lot of things. There's more things going on than any one person can really process, except for maybe Gregory. So anyway, it's a really wonderful thing to see. So I'm really proud of us.
Great job, everyone.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
See you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.